Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.
Sasso insecticide spray and coil.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Founders Day edition of Ghana Tonight. It's a holiday, but we're here to bring you everything you missed throughout the day. We're coming to you live from a news about Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on YouTube. We're live as well on DSTV channel 279 and also on X at TV3 Ghana. I am Alfred Ocansey. This evening, a two-day protest charging the government to take swift, decisive action to stop the grave ripple effects of illegal mining, known as galamsey, has come to an end. But the message from the conveners clear. We'll delve into it more on this matter on Ghana Tonight. Stay with us. Also, President John Dramani Mahama is set to address a high-level debate at the United Nations, the first time in 8 years. We'll bring you an update on how he was received by Ghanaians in New York and what the president will be speaking on. Stay with us here on Ghana Tonight. The central bank reduced the policy rate from 25% to 21.5%, much to the many who were expecting the policy rate to be maintained, expressing surprise at the decision of the central bank. Well, the move is expected to encourage financial institutions to lend more, all things being equal, at cheaper rates to businesses and households, enhancing operations and also creating jobs for many Ghanaians. But then again, we'll tell you what Fitch Solutions is saying about the global picture of policy rates and how that will trickle down to us here in Ghana in the months ahead of us. You're an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Day 2 of the anti-galamsey protests led by the pressure group Fix the Country maintained calls for the government to declare a state of emergency. Conveners of the protests say ills committed against the environment must end, urging government to rethink effective solutions to the illegal mining menace. This position was reinforced by lead convener Osajifo Oliver Baka-Vomawo, who stressed that the extent of environmental destruction and lives lost present enough justification for declaring a state of emergency.
We all have a role to play, but those who have power to act must. And if chiefs are complicit in the process, they must be brought to account for it. That's what is important. This crisis does not engulf the Fourth Republic. That's why the survival of this democracy is at stake. We must treat it with the emergency that it demands.
New York is hosting 200 world leaders, including Ghana's President John Mahama, who will address the high-level debate at the United Nations. President Mahama has arrived in New York 8 years after his last address to the world. This is what he had to say.
It's not sympathy we want, it's partnership. The ability to stand on our own feet. It's not handouts we're in search of, it's opportunities. We've already shown with time and the right opportunity, Africa can make it.
For the first time since violent communal clashes displaced more than 13,000 residents in the Boli and Saola Tuna Kalba districts, returnees in Boli have gathered for a Sunday church service. The development is being seen as a major step in the ongoing peace-building process. Security official DSP Karim Mahama says the well-attended service is evidence of growing public trust and a sign that displaced persons are gradually resettling.
Our brothers and sisters who are still at large in the bushes in Côte d'Ivoire, let them know that the police service is here to provide you with security so that you can go about your farming businesses without fear of being attacked by anybody.
Regional Minister Wilbert Petty Brentum has urged persons with disabilities to embrace agriculture as a source of livelihood rather than resorting to begging for alms. The minister made this call during a visit to the farm of Peter Nkwa, a physically challenged farmer whose determination has become a shining example in the region.
If you look at his condition and going into farming, it's an encouragement for all the people that have one level of disability or the other to actually consider what our brother is doing and follow suit, rather than sitting by the roadside to beg for alms.
Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman on Sunday visited the personal photographer for Sajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Reverend Christian Chui Hesse. The celebrated cinematographer and filmmaker was responsible for preserving priceless visual archives of Ghana's political leadership and development. The vice president was accompanied by the presidential advisor on the 24-hour economy, Guzi Tano, and her chief of staff, Alex Sebefia. Professor Opoku-Agyeman expressed gratitude to Reverend Hesse for documenting and safeguarding Ghana's history. She assured him of government's commitment to safeguarding the archives and filling the gaps to ensure the next generation has access not only to data, but the qualitative truths. Professor Nana Jane further stated that Hesse's contributions underscore the importance of owning and preserving the country's history. She thanked him for his extraordinary service to the nation and prayed for his continued strength and good health.
There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and on YouTube, and on 3 News as well. On YouTube, you can connect with us. As always, probably brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, Sasso Insecticide Spray and Quell, Tum Preko. Coming up next year on Ghana Tonight. The Fix the Country movement ended its demonstration. It was a peaceful one against illegal mining, galamsey, at the Revolutionary Square in front of the Jubilee House. Prior to this moment, that particular area had been declared a security zone, but the protesters reiterated their demand that the government declares a state of emergency to confront the menace, which has been described as an existential threat to the country's future. Today, it's day 2, and as a matter of fact, understand all their demands presented. Now, today, day 2, led by the convener, Oliver Bakavomawo, these protesters, members of the Fix the Country movement, intensify their calls on government to take urgent action against illegal mining. The protesters, which we saw earlier today, followed a vigil that was held on day 1, supposed to also drum home that particular concern about the impact of illegal mining. We have members of the clergy and persons from all walks of life. The demonstrators marched to the seat of government to protest their concerns and then also ensure responses and commitments to have them done. Just want to recall some of the expectations expressed by the protesters earlier today. Oliver Bakavomawo led the protesters, and this is what he had to say. Take a look.
We all have a role to play, but those who have power to act must. And if chiefs are complicit in the process, they must be brought to account for it. That's what is important. So Galamsey, my friend, that's it. I will keep doing this. We keep talking. We keep coming out to the end. And my hope is that this crisis does not engulf the Fourth Republic. That's why the survival of this democracy is at stake. We must treat it with the emergency that it demands.
That's Oliver Bakavomawo, a private legal practitioner as well. Now, Nadenswa also joined the protesters, and she had a direct, clear message to the president because she was at this protest today with her grandchildren. Take a look at this.
Their mother is home pregnant with another baby. What future does that baby have? We are here today to ask the father of all, to take them like his beautiful Farida. They too, they want the treatment Farida has got. Clean water, healthy food, and good air to breathe. That's all they're asking for. They're not asking for money. They just want clean air, clean water, and healthy food. So that they can grow up to be like beautiful Farida. That is all we ask for. Thank you. Their mother is home pregnant with another baby. What future does that baby have? We are here today to ask the father of all to take them like his beautiful Farida. They too, they want the treatment Farida has got. Clean water, healthy food, and good air to breathe. That's all they're asking for. They're not asking for money. They just want clean air, clean water, and healthy food. So that they can grow up to be like beautiful Farida. That is all we ask for. Thank you.
With what was happening here in Accra, we also monitored in the eastern region. There's been days of a crack on illegal mining, specifically in the Ibuako South area. We're going to show to you the Ibuako South Municipal Assembly has taken steps to address illegal mining activities on the water bodies by establishing an anti-galamsey task force. This is the municipality's anti-galamsey task force to combat the issue of galamsey happening around the Ibuako South area and its environs. In fact, the Ibuako South municipality is endowed with abundant water bodies and natural resources, but galamsey has fortunately led to the destruction of some forest reserves there, and then also the pollution of water bodies in the area. This was an active galamsey mining site that was clamped down by the that's the task force set up by the municipal assembly in the area. Now, the illegal miners had to flee because, from what we got information of, they had a tip-off of the arrival of these task force members set up by the municipal assembly. And so, unfortunately, they were not arrested. But you can see the water pumps and other equipment that they were using in the area. What happened? And we're focusing on a number of interventions taking place as we speak in the western region, eastern region, the Protestant and the Greater Accra region as well. And we also monitored some actions in the central region as well. We do know that the Kwanyako headworks had been shut down, and that has led to water crisis in the Efotu constituency and its environs. Daryl Bosu is the Deputy Director of Arocha Ghana, one of the leading environmental NGOs we have in this country in the fight against galamsey. They are complementing the efforts of the Ibuako South Municipal Chief Executive that's put together this task force we saw right now. He's joining us on Zoom. Daryl, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Hello, Daryl, can you hear us? Unfortunately, we're unable to connect to Daryl, but here's what we do know. Even beyond that, we also got information of what's happening in the western region, instances where the task force that was set up in the western region this time around by the command there and the national security in the western region also identified some illegal mining activities along some water bodies in the western region, clamp down on illegal miners, some of whom were relying on spiritualists to do the work, the illegal work that they were doing. And in fact, some of these spiritualists, from what we got to know from our reporter, Rama Smith, had to flee upon the arrival of the task force. Take a look.
Next time I want to see him with the juju, we'll burn in the juju. This is where they consult the gods before they operate. Yes, that's the Mamota shrine. Yes, so when they do this, it means they'll get more good and they'll destroy the water. And in fact, we will not forgive them. We will destroy everything. Wherever that ghost is, we are ready to meet the ghost. If we encounter a lot, sometimes you go and see white sheep, some white fowls, and other things, but we don't give up. We still have to kill them and move forward.
So the fetish priests who had the soft drinks and fowl and white sheep there also had to run away when this task force arrived there. Darrell Boss is joining us on the telephone. Darrell, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight.
Good evening, Alfred. I'm very happy to be here. I believe you are great.
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. First, let's start from what you're doing in the Ebuakwa South Municipality. We've seen a task force set up by the Municipal Assembly, but then you're also complementing their effort. Now, how impactful has that task force been, especially in clamping down on galamsey activities in the municipality?
Thank you, Alfred. I think, yes, we've seen some renewed fight by the Municipal Assembly led by the Honorable Minister, the Honorable MC. And I think that, I can say when they were on the field, you could see that people were clearing from the various mining sites. I think it's a good thing that has been started, and just as we've been demanding, we think that the government needs to give most of these MCs and DCs some KPIs that are tied to rating the municipalities of Galamsey. So to see that the Honorable MC is taking steps to rate the municipality of Galamsey is very good. But I think the other discussion on as to whether it's been impactful or not is something that we also need to discuss, because, we could see that even though the Honorable MC is doing his best, what we saw and on the ground is that we are not getting the support from the police as should be the case. And that is how come you saw a lot of people, even though they're being chased around and all of that, with the team trying to arrest some of these illegal miners. They weren't really that successful. They only arrested a few people. But most people, even though they saw the equipment on site, they couldn't do anything because the police was following them, but very passive in the whole process. So it's a good move that the MC wants to do something, but if you don't have the concerted effort of the police, other enforcement agents backing him, it's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
I see. Now, you talk about how this situation, as we're seeing now on the screen, the extent of devastation that these illegal miners have caused to water bodies and the forest reserve there. Is it one that this task force, from what you do know, because you're working with them or collaborating with them, can really clamp down on the magnitude of this problem in the area?
Yes, Alfred, I think you're right. This part of the eastern region has not been spared galamsey. I can say that a lot of the hardcore miners can be found in these areas all the way to the Kwabing-Atiwa West area and all of that. And then Fantiakwa district as well, Osino, Insutem, all those areas are very close to the enclave. And the kind of mining going on, there's a lot of impunity. Miners are taking over community lands and also destroying water bodies. MC cannot do all of this without support from some very, I would say, targeted or experienced team coming in from, say, 9 months to help address this. The local team, they are doing their best, but like I said, even with the local team, they are not getting the full force of the police behind them. So it's not really working as well. You rather see the NIB, you see the fire service, and some members of the municipal assembly doing their best. But so far, I think the police participation in the process has been very passive, and things. These miners are still moving their equipment, moving their trommels, moving their excavators from one point to the other. And even though the police are constantly on the road they have a lot of checkpoints, we are not seeing a lot of activities or interest to actually address the illegality. So I think this is where, no matter how the MCE tries its best, it's still going to be very, very difficult. That's why we need to have some more dedicated team like NIMOS to come into the region and try to rid the region of these illegal miners who are really destroying a lot of lands and rivers with impunity.
Buakwa area, give us an idea, a picture of the extent of this destruction caused by galamsey that we're talking about, specific to, for instance, the Itiwa forest and these other areas that you work with.
Yes, Alfred, I think when you come to these areas, because this area also has got the Densu River, the Birim River, also the Ayensu, you've been talking these days about Kwenyako, the people in the central region not getting water and all of that. They actually get their water from Ayensu River, which comes from that Itiwa forest. And a lot of the people also in the eastern region, from here all the way to Chebi, all the way to Kofori, but they also benefit from the Birim River as well. And then there's the Densu, which comes all the way. Now, the Densu, which comes from Potua, say, south of the Itiwa forest, for example, all those forested areas that were close to the river, protecting the river, has all been degraded now. Areas surrounding the Densu area has been mined, especially in Potuasi community, moving down there. And then also along the Birim also, there's quite a lot of mining activities polluting it. So as I speak now, we can even say that the Chebi water treatment facility is operating at minimum capacity. And then we also have all these issues with the Insukem area, Osino, when you're driving from Accra going to Kumasi, you get to Eminem, you see the state of the Birim there. So really, it's really a very bad situation. And now what is common to see along the highway is people use aluminum sheets to try to block the activities from the drivers and all of that. So you'll be driving, you see roofing sheets being used to block a section of the road on the side of the road. You think there's some building construction going on. No, that is all illegal mining activities, trying to prevent drivers and all road users from seeing the illegality that they are doing. So I think it's really bad. And the fact that we don't really see any serious activities to clamp down on illegal activities in these areas, so makes it a problem because it creates a lot of impunity. And that's how come in these areas, a lot of these miners are moving equipment and nobody is doing anything. So, like I said, the MC is doing his best, but he will really need a lot more support than what he has going on with at the local level. That's why we have always been saying that NIMOS must come in with a lot of the agency that is needed to clamp down on all of it. And I think that when they come, they shouldn't really let anybody and to make sure they see the excavators, they see trommels and all of that. And there are a lot of people also now producing and manufacturing the trommels for washing the gold on site. And for me, it's quite surprising, even though there's an act at 995 which forbids anybody from fabricating equipment. This is happening broad daylight by the roadside. Right from Eminem, right from Osino, you see people doing construction work. So I think that there's a lot more to be done in this particular area in dealing with the galamsey menace.
It's important that you reference the Ayensu River because, as you indicated, that's the source for the Kwenyako headworks that has been shut down as a result of the increasing turbidity, the pollution of that water that has led to the breakdown of that treatment plant. That's led to some water crisis in a number of communities in the central region, including the Afutu and other areas. Galamsey, as far as we do know, doesn't take place in Kwenyako and its environs. But the Ayensu River, which is the source for these headworks, is in the eastern region where galamsey is taking place. So that's the source of the pollution that has led to this shutdown of the headworks, isn't it?
Yes, yes, they're very correct. And so there's a lot of mining going on at Enuma Pepin, which is very close to, which is actually sitting very close to the Ayensu River. So they are really doing a lot of the illegal activities and then affecting the people downstream, which is the central region, and all those dependent on the river downstream now. So actually, that is actually the sad situation of the whole Galamsey thing, because there are people upstream doing all the illegalities and a lot of people downstream who are not involved, but have to suffer for it. And that is how come you see people mining in the Pra River, even though there are a lot of communities that depend on the river. They are downstream, they are not really engaged, but they are affected. It's the same with the Densu. If people start mining in Portoise, say, for example, where the Densu comes out of the Atiwa Forest Reserve, then people downstream, people at Nkoko, people at Nsawam, and then people in Accra who depend on the reservoir at the Makati area would also, or Wager area will also be affected. So I think that we really need to pay attention to the Galamsey issue. Unfortunately, we are not getting the necessary decisive actions because our leaders are playing with it, and their solutions are there, but we are deliberately beating around the bush and not getting these issues. So, Alfred, it's a very, very serious situation. So, for me, we've been doing this advocacy for so long. We've been trying to warn the government that, look, the fact that we are being negligent in dealing with this matter is going to bring serious consequences, not just for those who are upstream, but also for us downstream who have nothing to do with Galamsey. And that is why there's also issues of food poisoning and likely to be coming out of a lot of the contamination of our food system, also because of Galamsey. So, Alfred, it's really bad. The people in the Central region, unfortunately, have to suffer from the illegality that is happening at the Enuma Pepin on the Ayensu River.
And Darrell, quickly, before I let you go, when you, together with the task force in this Ebuakwa South Municipal Assembly, were going around tracking the activities of illegal miners, we understand the drone that you're using was destroyed by these illegal miners. That's earlier. We have a video of that. Let's take a look at this. This is what the 1957 that's news put out there on what has what happened to your drone. Now, tell us exactly what happened. Did they really shoot down your drone?
Oh yes, I think the team was working with a team set up by the MC, and then as they were in the field, they went to one side, and as the people were running away, even though they saw the officers, they started running away. The drone was flying behind a hill, coming towards the site, and I think maybe because over the hill, the people could also see the drone far up there, they were able to shoot at it, and then it fell. So I think for a moment, I mean, we're not able to do anything with the drone. We have to recover it as a thing. And so that's, I mean, it all tells about a kind of impunity, even though they see that there are law enforcement officers on the ground trying to make sure this stops. These guys are so brazenly hardened that they will do whatever to even thwart the effort of enforcement actors. And this is where I think that we really have to take this issue very seriously. I think it's getting out of hand. The miners are getting so emboldened, and we are not very tough in terms of our actions to dealing with them. They'll think that they can always override security forces and all. So I think it's a sad development for us, because I mean this drone has also been very useful in monitoring a lot of the illegal activities, also affecting the forest itself. And this is also where we have a big challenge, because we've seen a lot of young men, they move into the forest by night, not with excavators, but they move into the forest using footpaths and trails in droves to go and mine in the forest in the night and come out by day. So the challenge is still there. The Forestry Commission, they have their team on the ground. They are doing their best, but I think this needs much more men on the ground to really get these guys out of the area. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Darrell Bosso is the Deputy Director for Arocha Policy, and also one of the major NGOs leading this fight, the CSO's advocacy. the fight against galamsey. Thank you so much for joining us here at Daroboso. This is Ghana Tonight. Coming up next, we're going to go to New York shortly. Komla Kluche, who is a presidential affairs correspondent, is going to be joining us from New York live shortly. But before that, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana has reduced as we do know, the policy rate at which it lends to the commercial banks by some 350 basis points to 21.5%, and that generated some conversation and as to how that can be sustained in terms of the impact and expected outcome in the coming months. The move is expected to encourage financial institutions to lend more at cheaper rates to businesses and households as well, and thereby enhancing operations and creating jobs for many Ghanaians. And this is one that has been complemented by the Fitch Solutions latest report on the mid-year update banking key themes. Now, most central banks across the globe will continue to cut their policy rates in the second half of the year. That's according to Fitch Solutions projections. For instance, it expects the European Central Bank, the U.S. Federal Reserve, and the Gulf Cooperation Council to cut policy rates by a cumulative 50 basis points by the end of 2025. Now, this is captured in the mid-year update banking key themes for 2025. According to the UK-based firm, lower interest rates will weigh on banks' net interest income, and therefore profitability trend is already visible amongst US and European banks. Now, this is one that, indeed, if we narrow the scope of this analysis to the situation here in Ghana, we saw a 350 basis points reduction in the policy rate by the central bank as announced last week, much to the surprise of many market watchers. Professor Patrick Esuming is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Economics Department. He's joining us on Zoom right now to have a conversation on this particular development and what is happening right now going forward. Professor Esuming, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. For the many people who saw this decision, in fact, by the central bank to reduce the policy rate, in as much as that has been lauded, there are others who were surprised because a number of you had projected that there was going to be a maintenance of that 25% policy rate. Then the central bank took that decision to reduce it by 350 basis points. Which side of the spectrum were you looking at prior to this announcement?
I absolutely didn't expect a further rate cut, given that the previous meeting we've seen a trend. I think, first of all, a 300 basis cut earlier on in July was consistent with what had been expected. Some thought that perhaps 300, including myself, thought that 300 basis points was quite high. So, and given that, you know, we haven't fully emerged from our difficulties, even though, I mean, the recovery is very strong. So I was quite surprised. And also noting that it's not like growth is floundering. Growth is doing better than expected. Mm-hmm. So even though the disinflation has continued steadily, I thought that perhaps the central bank would have waited and see how the 300 basis point cut will pan out for some time before taking the action. But
I see. But then again, we do know, all things being equal, that electricity, water tariffs will go up, not by the margin of over 200% that both the Electricity Company of Ghana and Ghana Water Limited are all asking for. But certainly we'll see an increase in the tariffs in the coming months. That would also have an impact on the economy in many ways. Now, would you expect that this reduction in the policy rate would provide some buffer or mitigation against the expected impact of the increase in tariffs, water and electricity tariffs in the coming months?
Well, I think the upcoming upward tariff review, it definitely featured in the mind of the MPC. I think at the start of the meeting, when the governor made a statement, he did make reference to that. So it's obviously a significant upside risk to the inflation projection going forward. But it's not just that. We've seen that the CD has lost some ground in the last 4 weeks or so. And it's expected that it might lose some further ground. That's not to say it's a bad thing. I think that the CD is returning to what it should be, and that is a good thing. But that means that it has the potential to put more pressure on prices. We've already seen some marginal adjustment in fuel prices. It's expected that at the next window there might be further increments, and this pass-through effect takes some time to be felt in the economy. So I think, there are forces that are beginning to show that there might be some inflationary pressures down the line. We may not see it in the readings now. Nobody definitely expected that we see it for the August reading. September, most likely October, we begin to see those pressures beginning to crystallize. So with these coming, I thought that perhaps the central bank would have held its horses and waited to see how the developments pan out. But so I think all of these put together are reasons why I expected that, even if there was going to be a cut, it would have been rather moderate, not the 350 basis points.
I see, but we've seen from the beginning of the year, the Bank of Ghana reducing the policy rate by 650 basis points cumulatively. How do you expect the last quarter of the year to look like?
So I think there's one more meeting in November. A lot will hang on what the inflation reading will be for the next 2 months, the next 2 readings. I don't expect that. I think that disinflation might continue perhaps at a slower pace for the September reading. It's for the October reading that I think that we begin to see some effect of the recent correction in the value of the city. That's the recent depreciation of the city. Then we begin to see how much it will bite. I think one thing that helps is the general expectation that everyone is going to cut their rates, and the fact that especially if advanced countries are cutting their rates, then it gives you room to cut your rates without putting too much pressure on your currency. But you know that the CD is now returning to what its true value should be. The president has said as much. And that means some depreciation. And we know how the way the depreciation works is there's the real predicted impact, and all this pricing behavior, forward-looking pricing behavior. When it sets off in motion, people tend to think that it will continue for a while. So people price that in. So sometimes, this effect tends to be higher than perhaps it should be.
Right.
So all of this put together, I think that perhaps after 2 rounds of substantial reductions, perhaps the BOG, the MPC might decide to hold their horses.
I do appreciate you. Let's see how the coming months will look like. Thank you so much. Professor Patrick Asuming is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Economics Department. Thank you so much for joining us. On the back of this, let me remind you, tomorrow we have a date with you here at TV3 and across all media journal platforms, the National Thought Leadership Forum. And it is on the theme From Blueprint to Block, Making Affordable Housing Work. Tomorrow, right from 8 a.m. to midday, 12 noon, at the Labadi Beach Hotel. We would have the Honorable Kenneth Gilbert Ajay, the Minister in charge of Works and Housing, Dr. Edward Atosapong, Managing Director, ADB Bank, Gideon Ayiku Akrofi, Executive Chair, Rehoboth Group. We also have Prosper Hotu, CEO of National Home Ownership Fund, and Professor S.O. Afram, the Professor of Architecture, Department of Architecture, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kia University. And it's tomorrow. It's a very important conversation about affordable housing, how this reality can be achieved, bridging that gap between what affordability really is and how policy can also address that gap as well. So it's one that we're going to have a very important conversation tomorrow at the Labadi Beach Hotel. If you can't make it in person, you can also watch it live on TV3 and also follow it on 3FM 92.7, but you are cordially invited. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Go straight to New York. Komla Kluche, senior presidential affairs correspondent. He is with the president's entourage, following the president every step of the way. He has some exclusive detail for us after this quick break. Stay with us.
Tea, frothy goodness, rich taste, so satisfying.
Cadbury goodness, the treat you deserve every.
Nose acrobato.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. President John Dramani Mahama is set to address the United Nations General Assembly on global peace and security, advancement of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, climate action, and regional economic integration. And Kamla Kloche gave us a view of how the week will be, starting from when the president arrived in the United States. Take a look.
Security at the 80th United Nations General Assembly will be tighter than ever. Some 200 world leaders are expected to fly into New York City at a period when global conflicts are raging. Topmost, Gaza, Israel, Russia, and Ukraine. Those tensions will be reflected at the United Nations. The quiet before the storm that will bring New York City to its annual gridlock. U.S. head of
Well, that's the atmosphere there. Now, this year is the 80th session of the United States Nations General Assembly, and it's on the theme 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. And this is what has been happening today, day one. And statehood of Palestinian took center stage at a conference hosted by France and Saudi Arabia, and also the Security Council held an emergency meeting on the recent incursion by Russian fighters just into the Estonian airspace. In the coming days, tomorrow, all things being equal, we'll see the United Nations Security Council expected to hold a meeting on the war in Gaza and the security situation, and also the world leaders expected to gather for a climate summit. And this is where we're zooming straight to what's happening with respect to the Ghanaian interest at the United Nations General Assembly. And Komla Kluche is a senior presidential affairs correspondent. He's joining us live from the streets of New York right now. And Komla, talk to us. How has day one of the UN General Assembly been as we speak?
Well, I mean, Alfred, it's been very, very busy for both the POG means the President of Ghana, the First Lady, and also the Foreign Affairs Minister. All of them have their programs they are running, even though, I mean, they are intertwined in one way or the other. But being quite a tight one for the POG, like I did say, a lot of the meetings has been holding where the private ones, holding bilateral meetings, and also, the signing of MOUs, most especially by the foreign minister. And then also the First Lady had that children encounter at the prayer section for children of the United Nations, quite a powerful one that she delivered this morning. But one of the things that's been looked at is for tomorrow. I can tell you, I mean, we're speaking to you. We just got to the permanent mission of Ghana here to the United Nations here in New York. This is where everything about Ghana happens. But right across down is where the United Nations office or the headquarters is, where we've been all day. It's been up and down, busy moment, because the opening session of the plenary happened today, where the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, and the former Liberian head of state, Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf, spoke, and they expressed concern about world peace and also the fact that women have been marginalized, irrespective of the Beijing Convention, where they're marking 30 years of it. It hasn't really reflected as to what women should be doing in terms of taking a center stage. But Alfred, let me run by you. Let's indicate that tomorrow the high level will actually be officially opened, and that is when the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is expected to give that opening address. Is the reason why you can see a lot of gridlock. I mean, just behind me, that's far away from here down south, almost all the roads are blocked because of what's going to be happening tomorrow, because Donald Trump would be in town. Secret Service, we have the LAPD, who for all this period have been on the street. But Alfred, what I can say is also, like you did ask, the Ghanaian interest, what else would the president be doing? From the itinerary that we get, the president would be at the UNHQ tomorrow at 8 a.m., by 8:30 a.m., and he will take part in that high-level meeting, which is the official opening of the heads of state who would be there. Now, after he has had that engagement, the First Lady will also be having some other engagement, but very topical would also be a meeting with the UN Secretary General. We also know that he will be having some engagement with the Rockefeller Foundation, where he will be selling the Ghana story on the research agenda to the foundation. This is to bring in a lot of investment. This is also to put the country on a pedestal where businesses or the country has been open for business and also for a lot of investment. Now, the other things that the president would also be doing on Thursday, the president would be addressing the world from the headquarters, and that's at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 4 p.m. in Ghana. And the president will be making the point forcefully, or especially when he leads the financial committee, so to speak, of the African Union, championing how Africa should be able to stand on its own feet financially. The issue of reparations has also come to play. The president would forcefully be making the point that it is not just about handout, but it's also about giving back what belongs to Africa. And the fact that Africa does not just need, the handouts that should be doled out, but they need to stand on its feet. And in standing on its feet, it means that there should be a level of respect. There should be a level of cooperation that should be. These among others are a few things that the president will be doing. But I can tell you, meetings of this like at the UN is very, very fast. And from one meeting to the other, sometimes by the time the president and his entourage is done for the day, it's way late into the night. But these things are supposed to happen. But I'll just paint a picture, just right there. You can see over there, one of the roads blocked leading towards the UN headquarters over there. The LAPD, you see the barricades from your shot over there, that they are trying to block the road. And this is a different arrangement at every minute or at every point in time. The LAPD, the Secret Service, and what we call, or what has been termed the clandestine security officers, are on the lookout, blocking roads here and there. The import of this is also as a result of the fact that the president of the United Nations will be in New York. His home or his house is not far away. The Trump Tower is not far away from the UNHQ. And so this is what the situation is like right here in New York. New York is actually a very busy, for want of a better word, a busy city. But because of these activities of the United Nations, 80 years, it's become much more busier in times like this, especially when the United Nations headquarters is really activated for their annual meetings.
Great detail there, comprehensive reporting there. Fantastic. Kamala, now just giving us the atmosphere of what they're walking us through what's going on and how the streets of New York look as we speak. Now, you've been speaking to some members of the Ghanaian community there, Ghanaians living in New York, and they've been talking to you about the expectations of the president. What have they been telling you?
Well, many of them say it's not the first time. John Mahama has had, a certain amount of command when it comes to international diplomacy. Mind you, the history of him being a communications minister, also being a journalist, and also because of the opportunity given to him by Professor John Evans Mills, for him to have met a lot of world leaders, the posturing that he's had in the past, many people or many of the people who believe in his administration say that he's in a better place position. The reason why the responsibility is on him from the African Union, from ECOWAS, to be able to speak for them, for want of a better word. Their expectation for them is for the president not just speaking to the continent or speaking to the world, but there are issues concerning back home as well. But they have equally expressed confidence in the fact that in just over the 9 months that the president has been in office, they've seen significant improvement. Even though there is room for improvement, they think that he said the right thing. They think that with the pace he's going, if he has the complement of his appointees, there's no doubt that the reset agenda that he's put around him, he'll be able to achieve it. But the issue now remains as to what the commitment is going to be even by his own appointees, which he himself has expressed a lot of confidence or reposed a lot of confidence in them. But the question remains, to what extent would the appointees be complementing the hard work of the president? Looking at the lengthy time, the chief of staff is here, the secretary to the president is here, the deputy chief of staff, and the two of them are here. The Minister for Health is here. The GITC board is here. We've also seen the National Health Insurance Authority board, Dr. Victor Papo, who is also here. A host of others. The NDPC board himself is also here. The foreign minister is also here. These are people who form, the fulcrum of the government of John Mahama. And so it tells you the kind of stake that this brings to them, and also the level of interest that they have. But at the end of the day, what does Ghana gain? That is what it is. Now, I mean, I'm trying up for you to see the helicopter way up there. Those are part of security reasons. And this is very common. It's been going on for the past almost 1 week or so, but it's been heightened a lot of that. Every, 1 minute or so, you'll see a chopper moving all over the skyscrapers and ensuring that security is top-notch. Security is high on the alert here in New York City, which is hosting the 80th year of the United Nations.
Some great detail, great reporting, Kamla. Appreciate you for this. And he's going to be on the ground. He's bringing you everything you need to know about the United Nations General Assembly's 80th session. Exclusive detail here on TV3 and across all media journal platforms. Kamla Kluche is there for us in New York and will bring you everything you need to know. It's a senior presidential affairs correspondent right there live from New York City. Kamla Kluche there. On behalf of the rest of the team, we want to say thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. We're back again tomorrow for another conversation. I am Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint, superior durability.